So Gravity told us it's gonna be like the first time with Ragnarok Zero Global. But this is literally you back in 2002, whenever Ragnarok Online first released. And today, we're kind of trying to bring that feeling back, right? Just kind of go back to this, oh hey, I wanna like hug my Catherine pillow again and all of that stuff. By the way, nothing wrong with having a body pillow. Just don't have girls on it. That's all I'm saying. And I want to talk about the differences between Ragnarok Zero Global and Ragnarok Online, because it's not nearly the same stuff. It's basically like the first time, but with a lot of improvements, with a lot of differences, subtle things that some of you guys might not know about, which might be the reason that you're judging the game based on the wrong assumption, or you're expecting something else, and then maybe you're gonna be pleasantly surprised, and maybe you're gonna be a little bit disappointed. Who knows? So let's, I guess, get right to it. I don't want to make this video too long because we got a lot to talk about. And we're gonna go through the philosophy of design of the game between Ragnarok Zero Global versus Ragnarok Classic. I'm gonna call it Classic, but like pre-renewal Ragnarok, right? The stats and formulas difference, the differences in reworked skills, the differences in gear, the difference in quest lines and the dailies, differences in instances and memorial dungeons, which were kind of really absent in the previous game, differences in monsters, and the economy. So let's start with the philosophy of design, right? The basic Ragnarok Online, the classic version from before Renewal hit, was pretty much just a sandbox. I mean, you kind of did whatever you wanted to do. There was no real direction in the game, except for the part where you kind of were leveling up. Sorry, a little bit raspy today. And we had this progression, this vertical progression in terms of leveling. There really wasn't a lot. Like, you could have spent the entire game farming porings, and there was completely nothing wrong with that. If that was your prerogative, then more power to you. There was no real goal in the game. And Ragnarok Zero Global has this kind of thing borrowed. I'm gonna say borrowed from other MMOs, action RPGs. I'm gonna say a lot of these elements are like from, I'm gonna assume, inspired by Diablo or Path of Exile or whatnot, especially when it comes to loot, right? And the MMO elements were gonna become clearer later, like with raiding mechanics and whatnot. So it's a little bit more guided. While I believe the game still keeps the sandbox elements from the past, it just adds on top of it, which is kind of, in my opinion, makes it a little bit more fun to play. So right, stats. You remember from Ragnarok Pre-Renewal, Ragnarok Classic, you get bonuses for every 10 points of strength, you get instacast at exactly 150 dex. The defense calculations were really strong in terms of upgrading gear. You had a very linear flee calculations. It was a lot simpler. But then again, I'm not surprised they had to do Renewal, because these calculations would make them kind of develop themselves into a corner if they if they kept going the same direction. So yeah, the calculations were inherently flawed in terms of like vertical progression. So yeah, it is what it is. But that was Ragnarok Classic, right? But in Ragnarok Zero Global, we're kind of basing more on the renewal mechanics. While it's not 100% renewal, at least from what I've noticed, I think, it's definitely based more on that. So we got split cast times. You got two different types of cast times. You got the variable cast time, which gets reduced by your dex and your int, by the way. A little bit of int. I think it's every 3 points counts as one dex or something like this. But dex and int reduce the variable cast time, and then you got split not split, fixed cast time, which is fixed, as the name suggests. So there's no other way of reducing it except for gear that specifically says reduce cast time by an X amount, right? I don't think we get the tense bonuses. We get new damage calculations in terms of attack calculations and magic attack calculations, which favor different builds and especially different weapons. So you might remember from original Ragnarok Online, the classic version, the most powerful weapons in the game were like level 1 weapons with 4 cards in them. It's not gonna be the case in Ragnarok Zero Global. The game is designed more into this renewal calculation where your attack really matters. So it's gonna be a lot better to use like a higher level weapon with higher base attack and higher refine with like 1 or 2 cards than 4 cards of the same kind, right? So that's just an example. And I believe we do have a slightly different attack speed calculation compared to back in the day, but I might be wrong on that. I don't exactly keep up. Since Renewal hit, really, I don't exactly keep up with Ragnarok Classic, because I never liked Renewal that much. So yeah, I'm just saying, pre-Renewal that much. Like, I always found Renewal more fun, more complex. Now, the skills. Many of you, I picked up just a couple as an example here, but you might remember these as being a little bit clunky to use, and I think these are great examples. The whole thing does apply to almost every other skill in the game, but these are just great examples. So you might remember backstab as being kind of useless, and really, if any time you used it, it was like once every month or something, right? You found I don't know, use of backstab for some reason. And it was kind of bad. Anyway, now backstab is fixed, or you can use it from any angle of the monster. You don't have to start. You don't have to be behind it. By the way, I do have videos on my channel showing these new and improved skills on certain characters. Technically in a Korean Zero environment, but the skills that were improved in there are the same way improved in Ragnarok Zero Global. It's just the Zero Global gets additionally more changes in terms of other skills also coming into the question. But like backstab, it teleports you directly to the monster, stabs the monster twice with a dagger, it deals a lot of damage, very fun, very useful. Bowling bash, you might remember it as one of the better skills, but it did have those weird lines, like gutter lines, which would make you not hit the monster every now and then if it was standing in a weird spot. Now it's an AoE around your target, around yourself really, which just deals more damage the more monsters you have, and it deals crazy amount of damage when you have a two-handed sword equipped. So it's really strong right now. It's probably one of the best AoEs in the game right now. Meteor Assault was always a clunky skill to use. Now it just deals a lot more damage. Straight up a damage improvement. Very fun to use nowadays. Finger Offensive. You used to have to use all your spheres for it to cast at level 5. Now it's like 1 sphere per cast on every level, so it doesn't matter. You can use Finger Offensive level 5 and still just use 1 sphere. So that's pretty cool. The damage is also a little bit improved. Magnus Exorcismus, another great example. The skill used to only work on undeads and demons. Now it works on everything, except that it does additional damage to undeads and demons, which is great. I love the skill. Building Magnus Exorcismus is always fun. And Arrow Sling is another example of a skill that was just basically an auto attack at range. Now it deals damage technically twice. The animation shows it twice, but I'm not sure if it really counts it twice or just one sort of damage thing. But it deals increased damage. So instead of doing like 400, it would do 4,000 nowadays, right? So the skills are improved. Many other changes that I didn't really want to list. Again, if you want to go class by class, I do have videos on most of the classes. I think most of the classes somewhere on my channel. So just go ahead and browse that, right? Next up, gear. Now, sorry, I mentioned actually before, they used to have like level 1 weapons ruled the game, and basically from my experience, every pre-renewal sort of situation ended with everybody using the same gear. So everybody was using Valkyrian robes, everybody was using not robes, Valkyrian armor, then everybody was using the same helmet, the same boots, whatnot, right? And during the leveling part, your gear didn't really matter until you really had cards on it. Nowadays, the basic gear, which I have illustrated over here, like silk robes, can roll with certain amounts of affixes on it. So technically it's up to 5. Most like entry level gear is gonna roll with up to 3 additional affixes. Affixes are additional effects on the gear. So the silk robe, in example, rolled with additional max HP, magic damage taken from fire enemies minus 5%, and additional max HP flat. So it's fantastic for leveling up, fantastic for just kind of making your character a lot stronger. It feels a lot tankier when you suddenly equip like a silk robe with 700 or 600 HP flat on top of whatever else you have already. It's great. It makes for fun builds. If you wanna browse all the possible affixes, I do have a video on it, and I do have a whole section dedicated on it on midgardhub.com, which is my Ragnarok Zero Global database. But beyond that, there are also Zero exclusive gears also illustrated over here. Just examples like Conqueror's Cloth, which is made by running instances in the game. You collect items, collect a bunch of items, you make a first tier, so let's call it a subjugation cloth, and then you upgrade that into another cloth, and then like Conqueror's Cloth is like your third tier of an upgrade. So you have a vertical progression in terms of gear upgrading. So that's something that was not there in Ragnarok Classic or Pre-Renewal at all. You only really had refines, and that's about it. Yeah, like you couldn't turn a Valkyrie armor into a Diablo's armor. Like those were two separate things, right? But now you have like a whole dedicated section of gear which is enchantable with a lot new affixes, a lot new powerful stuff. It works very well with refine levels and all that funky, very new, very complex mechanics that are, I think, are very exciting for a lot of people. Next up, weapons, the activated weapons, which are illustrated over here with the Jur, for example, the 2-star Jurs. That's another version of weapon progression or gear progression, because it also applies to armor, that you can get. I did make a whole video on it, so go ahead and watch that, but in a nutshell, it's you're activating another power levels on the same gear. So you drop a Jur, you refine it, then you activate it to a Jur with 1 star, and then it gets, the Jur in itself gets more effects, like it adds to your crit and to your attack speed, and then you activate it again, and then it gets even more effects and all of that stuff. So there's a lot more, I would say, space for trying out different builds because of all these different possibilities that we have, and it feels a lot more like Diablo kind of thing, which is great, or like Path of Exile. It's just a lot more complex, a lot more exciting, and gives you a lot more space to try out things that were not really viable back in the day. It's probably my favorite thing about the game right now, not gonna lie. Next up, quests. Ragnarok Classic or Pre-Renewal Ragnarok, let's be honest, hardly had any quests at all, like at all. You had those couple quests that everybody did because they had to access dungeons, like the Cursed Abbey or the Nidhogg dungeon. And what else really? The quest for Satan Morog. But like at the very end of its lifetime, it had some sort of quest, a little bit. It was like a singular quest line that ended very fast. The only hard quest that was there was the Gefania quest, the sign quest, right? But that was really it, and it wasn't mandatory at all. None of these quests were mandatory in any sense of that matter, and that was really about it. Ragnarok Zero Global features a full main storyline with characters, well, like illustrated characters, and a whole narrative, how to say it, like a whole narrative window that kind of walks you through what's going on with like the characters discussing things. Like it's a lot more interactive than your usual, let's say, Ragnarok quests, which were basically, okay, talk to this NPC and that's about it. And it kind of makes you, I'm trying to find a good example of a game that I could compare it with, but at this point I can't. Maybe a little bit like Diablo, but maybe that's a little bit of a stretch, right? Like it doesn't really work like that. Diablo's a lot more linear as well. But still, once you try it, I think you're gonna love it. I loved it, and I'm definitely looking forward to completing the whole storyline, because it's probably gonna go through all the patches. It's great. For those of you who do not like quests, well, this might be a minus for you, because a lot of the content will probably be locked behind a certain quest from the storyline. But so far, during the open beta, that's not the case. You don't have to do the storyline. It gives a lot of XP though, so I'm just saying. Furthermore, there are also daily and weekly quests, which are great. So if you're kind of just bored of your sandbox hunting and just grinding, you can just, or while at it, you can just add a daily, like a kill quest, daily fetch quest, daily whatever else quest that grants you additional items, like red potions and whatnot, just to kind of keep you up in the game, and additional XP while at it as well, which is great. I think those are great additions. It's kind of a hamster wheel situation, but you don't have to do them. So far, I haven't seen anything major hidden behind daily quests, so yeah. It's not necessary, but it's a great addition. Next up, it's the Memorial Dungeons. So Memorial Dungeons is Ragnarok Online Global, or Ragnarok Global, Ragnarok Zero Global. Geez, so many names, Can we just stick to one, like Ragnarok Global, Ragnarok Zero? Is Ragnarok Zero's name for instances? If you played other MMOs and other like RPGs and whatnot, you know what an instance is. And so far, from what I know, in Ragnarok Zero, we're getting 5 of them. So we're getting the Pouring King instance for first job, starts at level 30, it's pretty cool. And then we get Frontera Culvert, then we get the Maya, the Orc Hero, then we get the Fish. I think we also get a Drake instance. I'm not sure about that one. So at least 5, maybe more. And these instances give you are like designed with raid-like mechanics, so you're kind of supposed to do them as a party. Further on, as the game progresses, of course, people will be able to solo that, and we see that on the Taiwanese version of the game. But in the very first, I would say, a year, most of these parties are gonna be just parties, at least 2-3 people, right? At the beginning, probably full 12 man parties to kind of tackle these MVPs. And these instances drop the gear or the materials needed to make the gear that I illustrated earlier over here, like the Conqueror's Cloth, right? And everybody will be trying to make these, because these are very, very powerful, and you need to make them kind of in order to progress into further other activities. But I'm gonna like remind you, all that stuff should be tradable. And that kind of facilitates my last point of it, which is not the one upcoming, but like after that. MVPs. I know a lot of you guys, what you used to do in Ragnarok Classic, and this is something that I used to do as well in Pre-Renewal, just kind of make an Asura champion and like camp all the MVPs. And that was fun. That was my fun in Pre-Renewal. There was really nothing else to do in that game. But now MVPs are tough. Like really tough. You got MVPs with like 35 million HP at least. So you cannot just one-shot them with an Asura, and Asura is not gonna do so much damage, right? So we're gonna actually need a lot of people, a full party of people to try and take down one of these guys. And not to, I mean, the instance MVPs are gonna be easier than the field MVPs, I believe. But from what I've noticed in my database, from the stuff that I've gathered around like the Taiwanese version of the game, the MVPs are really, really tough. And it's gonna be a fun experience to kind of do it as a group again. It kind of facilitates a lot of party play. I'm looking forward to it. Plus, there is a new incentive to doing MVPs besides the cards, because again, gear doesn't really drop from MVPs. You have to make it in this game, or just drop it and make it and keep refining it and all of that. But the incentive is a Blacksmith Blessing. So apparently there should be shards of Blacksmith Blessings dropping from these MVPs, which is great. So there is an additional incentive to do them, but also to try and control the market for the top guilds, I'm not gonna lie. So that might be a plus or a minus, depending on what type of person you are. Yeah, and last but not least, on that note, trading is even more important. So if you want to make those really, really high-end gear, like illustrated gear, like an upgraded Jur, double activated Jur or something, triple activated Jur, or Conqueror's Cloth, like +9 and whatnot, you're gonna have to trade with people. Unless you, I don't know, you have like 15 accounts or something and all of them are like hunting at the same time. But you're gonna need to trade with people, and it's even more prevalent in this version of the game than before. So everything is gonna work, everybody's gonna work in a synergy sort of thing. At least that's how I envision it. Like, I can't imagine myself farming all of this stuff by myself. So I'm definitely gonna be buying materials from other people, maybe reselling some of the materials that I don't need, trading things around, because there's so many different versions of the gear. Like specifically, for example, Conqueror's Cloth is not designed for swordsmen. For example, swordsmen have their own versions, so we're gonna have options to trade different materials between each other depending on the class that everybody's playing, and it's probably going to facilitate a more close relationship with different people and between different guilds as well. As long as we don't ruin it as players by like try-harding way too hard, I think it's gonna be very, very fun to trade. And I love trading. Trading is something that kind of always got me going in Ragnarok Online. It was always the most fun part outside of just like killing stuff, right? So like getting into the market of the game, it felt always so unique because it was so uncontrolled by any other force than the players. So everything was in our hands, and it was just amazing. But freely trade almost everything in this game, and it's gonna be the same way in Ragnarok Zero Global, with an extra level of complexity, which is fantastic, I think. So yeah, that's really my my video. Unfortunately, the camera is messed up, and that's something that I could not control. You could hear my voice. Oh, mate. Yeah, I'm just in a place that, you know, the sun is the way it is. I'll see you in the game, and as I mentioned before, check out the other videos. There is a lot of stuff about the skills. There's a lot of stuff about the gear systems on my channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Don't mind the light. It's me just shining. That's my glory.